Last year we celebrated 3 decades of Coastal Futures conferences, and I suggested that we should start an OCF award in Bob Earll's name, who's responsible for 29 of those conferences. I don't know how you did it, Bob. Anyway, so Bob Earll is a scientist, marine biologist, conservationist, environmental consultant, event organizer, and author. He's brought people together for 3 decades through these conferences, which I'm sure you appreciate is no mean feat. He's also been involved in many other initiatives, including Marine Conservation Society and the Shark Trust. And when he ran communications and management for sustainability, he hosted not just Coastal Futures, but over 300 events and conferences. Many were highly interactive, and he really is the embodiment of our community. So I'm really pleased to say that today we are starting the first Bob Earll Award. And during 2023, we invited nominations for the first Bob Earll Award. We selected a panel of people to help select a winner of an award, and the criteria that we established were sort of endorsed by that panel as well. It's really designed to be less of a competition, but more a way of recognizing a handful of people each year who just go that extra mile to make a difference. I don't think the panel think the award criteria are perfect at all. We had 1 criteria this year for inclusivity. Maybe it should have been more. I think it came across as a bit of a lifetime achievement award. Inevitably, the more time you've had, the more you can achieve. It's not necessarily the way the award scheme could travel. We're really keen for your feedback. This could be a multiple award scheme, but today we're just starting with one award. We had 6 nominations, and some of those people were nominated more than once. So I would like to just give a few reflections on the people that were nominated this year. Rhoda Ballinger received 2 nominations for a distinguished career teaching and supporting marine science and management at Cardiff University, plus her relentless support of 7SB Partnership, which I can vouch for directly. She's got over 100 publications and has supervised many postgrads who've gone on to be leading voices in our field. She's made a significant contribution directly and indirectly through the creation and support of so many key people, many of whom are here today. They pop up everywhere, Rhoda. Thank you so much. Round of applause for Rhoda. Peter Barham received a combined nomination from 4 people. His career in environmental sustainability has pioneered connections between industry, government, and the NGO community. He worked for the NRA and Environment Agency before working for Associated British Ports and was a founding member of the Seabed User and Developer Group. He's facilitated industry input to legislation and policy, such as the Marine Act, stakeholder engagement into marine conservation zones, advice on highly protected marine areas, and more recently, marine net gain, amongst many other firsts. Alongside this, he has a reputation for helping many people in their careers. Thank you, Peter. Louise Harrington is someone who demonstrates how simple belief and enthusiasm can change things. Her community engagement work should be an inspiration to us all. She's become a champion who motivates thousands of volunteers for litter-free beaches. She's worked with, enthused, encouraged, and supported volunteers in particular to make real difference to the Durham coast. This includes beach collection schemes, but also getting funding for projects and setting up long-term initiatives to make a difference to the quality of the coastal environment. Thank you very much, Louise. Stephen Hull has spent his whole life working to make a significant contribution to ocean and coastal management, advising industry, government, NGOs, and has been at the forefront of promoting sustainable use of the marine environment for decades. At the scale of individual projects, he's worked tirelessly with stakeholders to develop and agree mitigation and compensation measures focused on the principles of adaptive management. His encyclopedic knowledge of all things marine and coastal have provided guidance and direction to a huge number of people over the years. Thank you, Stephen. Jean-Luc Solent has been a consistent advocate for real marine management for many years. often a lone voice at Coastal Futures in setting out clearly the damage that activities can cause, particularly bottom trawl fishing. His consistency and stance on fishing eventually drew others to be more open and clear about damaging fishing activity, including the fishing industry itself, reflecting that things need to change. He stood alone in ensuring that damaging activities are highlighted, and for many years, for example, he was the only person who would say as such at Coastal Futures. Thank you very much, Jean-Luc. And Nicola Radford, for the past 15 years, has led the Coastal Communities Alliance, a partnership of coastal local authorities, coastal organisations and individuals. Her mission to build alliances and common purpose around the coast of Britain, with a particular focus on socioeconomic challenges, is paying dividends politically and practically. Her dedication to our coastal community stands out, fighting for a better future for all those who live, work or visit our coasts. Thank you very much, Nicola. So I'd like to now pass over to Bob Earll himself to present the award.
Okay, so I'm going to make this quick. There are only cards coming along. Excellent. The first thing I want to do is to thank Natasha and Dickon and David for taking the idea of Coastal Futures and actually amplifying it and making it a huge success. And I must also add that to that success, one can add Hannah, who's come on board, and Diana and Jane, who've been doing it almost for as long as I have, for the last 20-odd years, for organising not just this award, but just for a fantastic conference. So I think we need to take the opportunity to thank them all for carrying on and doing a fantastic job. Now, I gave a couple of bottles of champagne away in our local village hall at our annual Christmas dinner before Christmas, and it was an invidious task because the whole room was full of people who do fantastic things, okay? So, in a certain sense, these decisions are always very, very difficult. I have to announce that the winner this year is Peter Barham. No, can you hold it for a second? I need to move my hands around. I'm famous for moving my hands around. So, I just need to say one thing about this and Peter. You'll have heard a fantastic number of ideas, blue carbon, net gain, this, that, and the other. These ideas have been streaming forth for years. The reason, from my point of view, and I think from the other judges who took this view, was the fact that Peter has taken a lot of these ideas, not necessarily his own, but actually made them work in practice for real. He took the idea of the Seabed User Developer Group and has extended it, developed it in ways that none of us at the beginning would have started to think about. And that's what he's done throughout his career. And I have to say that he's done that in the marine and coastal environment, and you'll have bumped into him. But he's also had this parallel universe in the water environment, which I was in for a little while, but he was in too. I kept on bumping into him in that environment too. So it's an astonishing contribution over a lifetime, so it's very well justified and well done. Thank you.
I'm not usually lost for words. Natasha, phone. I knew this would happen. Okay.
1
Natasha phoned me up a few days ago and told me about this. And I was deeply touched and honoured. And I can't tell you how grateful I am to you. It's wonderful. It's truly wonderful. But I also wanted to show you this. It's the Observer's Book of Pond Life. And it was awarded to Peter John Barham, class Infant 2, for diligent work in July 1960, Stapleford School, Cambridge. And this was the start of my journey. And as you can see, it's quite moth-eaten, but it was the book that led me to love water, be it rivers, estuaries, coasts. I have a narrowboat, I love being on the canals, I go fly fishing, I go canoeing, I love water. So, Natasha said, speak for a couple of minutes. So, there's three things I wanted to say. One is, when I joined the water industry in 1978, I was working in Norwich, and I was looking at the biological quality of rivers by looking at the invertebrates. Great, I loved it. But while I was doing that, maintenance guys were dredging rivers and absolutely destroying them for the land drainage purposes. And why are we looking at water quality when we're not doing anything about the physical state of rivers? So I took it upon myself to go and talk to the engineers, and I got no support from above, I should say, and I was very junior, I was an assistant biologist. So I went to see the engineers to try and find out why they were doing this, and they fairly rapidly started calling me fish and flowers. So I responded by calling them the Institute of Concrete Pourers. But two of those guys became really important. One went on to become a regional engineer in MAF, which was DEFRA's predecessor, and he was instrumental in helping me not just to write, but make sure that environmental assessment procedures for flood defence works, both in rivers and coasts, became part of the flood defence programme. We had no conservation law in those days. Do you remember, Bob? Have regard to was our entire weaponry. That was really, and another one, who was probably one of the gentlest and most lovely people I've ever met, a guy called Bernard Ayling, sadly not with us anymore. I worked very closely with Bernard as he led on developing a flood alleviation strategy for Broadland. And we, at that time, the government would not give you any money for environmental aspects of flood and coast defence work. We had to justify that expense. And he and I became experts in environmental economics, contingency valuation, all that sort of stuff. And the third thing was that all changed overnight when the Habitats Directive came along. And what a difference that made to the way we worked. It is the most superb piece of legislation. We talk about engaging with politicians. From Owen Paterson onwards, I've spoken to every single Secretary of State and said, do not break the Habitats Directive. It isn't broke, don't mend it. Brexit has made matters worse, but we're still fighting that fight. I haven't had a chance yet to speak to the new Environment Secretary, but I've done it with all the rest. So, yes, we need to talk to politicians. Key to all that is people. And there's been a lot of talk about inclusivity, a lot of talk about involving people. There are some fantastic people in this community that we have, and we've talked about this community many times. Jane Godwin has taken the SUDG a step further in terms of involving people and making sure that we come up with shared objectives. Brilliant job. When my head gets so full of policy, complexity and convolution, I haven't got a clue what to do, I'll phone up Dickon. And we have half an hour, and between us we go, oh, okay, that's quite good, we can sort that out. There are some terrific people around, and I won't name any more names other than obviously you, because you're just superb. Gemma Harper this morning, and a new one today, Annika Clements. What a paper that was. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. So, people are important. In 1995, I presented a paper to the MAF Flood and Coastal Conference and said that we needed to talk to people more. We needed to inform them, we needed to involve them, and we needed to influence them. But we equally needed that to be reciprocated. And if we were going to do things differently, that was what we had to do. We had to bring people with us, communities, NGOs, politicians, you name it. We had to talk to them, we had to listen to them, and we had to engage with them. And Sarah Coulthard's paper was spot on. Trust is absolutely critical. I mean, I've stood in front of fishermen, I've stood in front of 150 trawlermen round the Wash, and listened to them and tried to persuade them that what we wanted to do was the right thing for the Linkshore coast, Mablethorpe, Skegness coast. I've stood in front of people that have been flooded, and that's not a great experience. Those people are frightened about being flooded again, and you need to be able to demonstrate that you can. They've got to be able to trust you. You have to be a human being as well. I wasn't just Environment Agency. I was Pete or Peter, and that's what they called me. So people are really important. And so therefore my message is not about being, we're here and we're all good and we all really believe passionately in conservation. But there's no point in convincing each other. You've got to get out there. You've got to spread the message. You've got to talk to people. You've got to go and create partnerships. You've got to create collaboration. And you're going to get bruised, and it's going to take somebody talked about bravery. It does take guts, sometimes to go out and, and I've got a skin like a rhino after 30 years of being abused. But you've got to go out and you've got to do this, and it's really, really important that you don't just stick in the comfort circles of talking to your own like-minded conservation colleagues, etc. Get out there and talk to everybody else. And then you need a bit of rest and recuperation, so you make the annual migration down to London at the end of January, and you come to Coastal Futures, and you meet all the like-minded people, and that sort of rebuilds the thing. So all I want to say is thank you very, very much. It's been a privilege.
Thank you.